I took a trip downtown this week to visit an old friend, the Hudson's Bay department store. This store is one of 80 in Canada. Of course, one of the oldest, built in 1913. The opportunities to visit are narrowing, since most Bay locations are set to close June 30th. For most Canadians, it seems like Hudson's Bay's already been on life support for a couple of decades. The 354-year-old company, founded on fur trading and expensive blankets, has struggled to keep its offerings relevant and appealing to 21st century shoppers. The chain is widely thought to be the most public casualty so far of the Trump-initiated US-Canada trade wars of early 2025. It's certainly a key thread that snapped. 6 Bay stores in Ontario and Quebec are spared liquidation for now. Even these might evaporate, depending on the outcomes of court decisions and lender negotiations in the coming days and months. For Canadians like me in major cities and regional hubs, brick-and-mortar shopping options remain somewhat reasonably diverse. But in my hometown of Sydney, Nova Scotia, the loss is significant. Walmart and Winners, owned by TJ Maxx, are it for anything resembling a department store, and clearly only sell low-end and discount goods. The same situation will be true in dozens of smaller communities and remote areas in all provinces. But the funny thing is, we've seen this story play out before in our country, multiple times. Simpsons, Eaton, Sears, Zellers, Target. Many of us remember when these giants fell. It's been a regular feature in millennial life especially. Every 10 years or so, another chain bites it, and their respective sales floors in their final days looked, unsurprisingly, pretty similar to what you're seeing here. The real loss and injustice in all these scenarios isn't the narrowing of consumer choice, but the layoffs and labor exploitation. Of the Bay's 9,300 employees, most are minimum wage and are losing their jobs with no severance and only a few months' notice. Additionally, as with nearly all North American chain retailers, most goods for sale are manufactured overseas in bleak factory conditions. Arriving on our shores by container ship, we customers have no clue as to where these items originated. HBC, owned by a US private equity firm since 2008, are experienced in closing an entire chain and leaving workers high and dry. The official story is that competition and failure to adapt led Zellers to its end. Well, that's mostly true. HBC's agreement to allow US retailer Target to take over Zellers locations in the early 2010s included outmaneuvering the relatively small but vocal group of unionized workers who were calling for a more just workforce transition. UFCW, Canada's largest private sector union, represented Zellers workers at 15 stores in Ontario, Quebec, and British Columbia. The union also organized protests outside Target openings nationwide. The Target stores did open, but they didn't stay that way for long. The epic failure and mismanagement of Target in Canada is a wild story for another day. But to sum it up, the stores were open 3 whole years. With conditions like this, is it any wonder that most people now view sales associate as a pit stop during a career rather than a lifelong profession? Decades of product knowledge and customer service skill are set to be discarded once again, as Bay workers start from the ground up and send their resumes to robots to be scanned. I have to admit that for me, the Bay was indeed a pit stop back in 2008. I'd boomeranged after completing my college degree and moved back home with my parents. I was hired at the Bay in Sydney as seasonal staff for a couple of months. The store had been an anchor at the Mayflower Mall since the mall's opening in 1980. My observation is that I could never find anyone who worked at the Bay, even when I worked at the Bay. It was very much a skeleton crew, even staffed up during the holidays. Now, this was partly my fault, since when I heard Code 1 to Central Cash on the intercom, I'd hide in the change rooms. Easy to do, since most customers never seem to make it past the front beauty counter. The Bay's beauty consultants must have been keeping all these stores afloat all this time, since otherwise there's not very much appeal in overpriced designer wear, racks of marked down, weird no-name wear, and interiors that haven't been updated in 40 to 80 years. Calgary has 5 bay locations, 4 in suburban malls, very similar to the one in Mayflower Mall, and 1 downtown, the one closest to my heart and my house. This historic building is the first of its architectural type in Western Canada among bays, built as a template for the central Vancouver, Victoria, and Winnipeg locations. The place is jarring to see in its current transitional state, since who knows what the enormous site will become. A museum or Indigenous Reconciliation Centre would be most appropriate. No joke, the latter is what happened to Winnipeg's downtown bay, and that would be the most cool. But knowing Calgary like I do, it'll probably be condos here. In Sydney, Nova Scotia, a private warehouse or Halloween spirit location is probably in that bay's future. In deindustrialized Cape Breton, ghosts of past department stores are rife. I'm far from the only drifting figure at the downtown Calgary Bay this week. We're all looking for a deal or two, or maybe just to stir up some memories. My visit was oddly affecting. I've never bought much here. A raincoat, a pair of tights, so it was a lot of window shopping in a quiet, peaceful space. I feel for the workers who also love this space and connected deeply with their jobs. They're still hard at work for a company that stacked everything against them. So farewell, Hudson's Bay. Pouring one out for all these reasons, also for my lost HBC points. But 3.5 centuries might just be too long, and eventually, it's time to bow out.